Hey guys, I wanted to do a video on Daniel's 2300 evening morning and show an article that I came across after uh, many weeks of fervent prayer on an answer to the fulfillment of this prophecy, because we know there are many explanations that, in my opinion, don't really make any sense. Uh, the biggest one being the Seventh-day Adventist interpretation of it turning into some new doctrine of the investigative judgment. We have tons of that. Um, Although Edward Bishop Elliot gave us, or he wrote the great work, the Horae Apocolypticae, which is the greatest work on prophecy that we have outside of the Bible, obviously. He didn't have the understanding of this prophecy, and I don't know if it's because uh, God withheld it from him specifically, or what have you. But he had a great understanding on all the way up to his time period, everything on the Revelation, and we know how vast that prophecy is. So no fault to him, but it's fine, it's okay. Not everybody has all the answers. But I wanted to look up Mede's A Key to the Apocalypse because I believe he referenced uh, Antiochus Epiphanes in his work. But he's the only other person that I've come across that has even referenced along the same lines of the information that we find in this article. And it was after reading Matthew Henry's commentary on Daniel chapter 11, which I found through Nicholas Arthur's website and his Bible study. And if you haven't done so already, go find Nicklas at Prophecy Reformation now on YouTube and go look at his videos. He has some amazing understanding of prophecy and his works. He's written many works on prophecy, and he does an outstanding, amazing job. He's the greatest prophecy, I would say, prophecy teacher that we have in regards to the Revelation and Daniel, and the interpretation thereof of prophetical symbols. But if we can find Joseph Mede's, I forget what page he referenced it on, but it's in this book, and I believe it's referenced by T.R. Burks in his book, First Elements of Sacred Prophecy. And I don't remember where it was in this book. I just wanted to show you this book. This is another fellow Protestant historicist in history that we can see the development of prophetic understanding through key works, and one of them is Joseph Mede's work here. And the only reason I know about T.R. Burke's work is from Henry Grattan Guinness, a fellow brother in Christ who's dead now, passed on. This is a late 19th century progressive revelation interpretation. Amazing book. Go to Nicholas Arthur's page on Rumble and listen to him read it. If you don't want to purchase it, but I highly recommend purchasing this book. It's amazing. God gave some excellent wisdom and understanding to Henry Grattan Guinness, to James Aiken Wiley. The Papacy is the Antichrist. Must read. Nicholas Arthur's doing audio of it right now, and he just finished reading it past couple weeks on his Prophecy Reformation now. Horae Apocolypticae is a must read. This is the abridgment, History of Apocalyptic Interpretation, or I'm sorry, yeah, History of Apocalyptic Interpretation. I think that's the abridgment there. If it's not, it's the appendix of the 4th volume. But Nicholas Arthur reads the abridgment on his Rumble, and it's on the or it's on YouTube. It's on its own Historia Apocalypticae. And you can listen to the abridgment, but no, I'm sorry, Horae Apocalypticae, I'm sorry, but he reads the entire abridgment on this page, and it's amazing. A must read for prophecy and to understand Revelation. So what we're going to do is read an article that goes over the 2300 evening morning as is written in Daniel, and we have chapter 8, Daniel 8:14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, or we come over and we get evening, morning. And if you have your authorized King James Bible, which is the only one I read, but it has it just like this. This is that book, except mine has updated text. It's not the, I think it's called the long print. I forget. But anyways, it said evening, morning. In 24, I believe. Or is it 25? Here it is, yeah. In the vision of the evening and morning, and the morning, which was told. So that's referencing 14. It's not days. It should be evening and morning, just like it's referenced in the same chapter back to what was originally said. So that's our clarification right there. The 2300 day, or should be evening morning prophecy of Daniel 8, concerning the duration of time from the taking away of the daily sacrifice until the cleansing of the sanctuary and the restoration of the sacrifice. The important passages we are considering are Daniel 8:11, 13, and 14. And let's just read Daniel 8 first, and then we can start referencing what's in it. Chapter 8. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beasts might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, or none touched him in the earth. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, or a horn of fight. Here, let me pull out my Bible second. or a horn of sight. My apologies. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. And he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he goat waxed very great, and he was strong. The great horn was broken, and for it came up by four notable ones, toward the four winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed even to the host of heaven. Or against the host of heaven, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, or against the prince of the host. And by him, or from him, the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and the host was given over the transgression against the daily sacrifice. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, or the numberer of secrets, or the wonderful numberer, how long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot, or making desolate, of the transgression making desolate? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 evening morning, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed, or justified. And it came to pass, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision, and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me, and set me upright, or made me stand upon my standing. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, or are accomplished, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people, or the people of the holy ones. And through his policy he also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many, or by prosperity. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Wherefore, shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted, and was sick certain days. Afterward I rose up, and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. So, Let's look at the article. The important passages we are considering are Daniel 8, 11, 13, and 14. 8:11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. 13 to 14. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall it be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 evening morning, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Setting the stage. The whole of the 8th chapter of Daniel is one of the most marvelous chapters of Bible prophecy. There is the most amazing coincidence between the prophecy and the historical record that forces critics to conclude, and critics being Henry Gibbon in his letter that is referenced in First Elements of Sacred Prophecy by Thomas Rawson Burks. It's his letter to a bishop, and that's where we get the man that says this prophecy is too accurate, because otherwise we would not know. Here it is. Gibbon, the author of the book of Daniel, is too well informed of the revolutions of the Persian and Macedonian empires, which are supposed to have happened long after his death. He is too ignorant of the transactions of his own times. In a word, he is too exact for a prophet, and too fabulous for a contemporary historian. The first of these objections was urged 1,500 years ago by the celebrated Porphyry. He carefully illustrated the distinct and accurate series of history contained in the book of Daniel, as far as the death of Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, so I have yet to read Porphyry. I plan to, but that's, I suppose, the first. I forgot that. For beyond that period, the author seems to have had no other guide than the shadowy light of conjecture. The four empires are clearly delineated: the expedition of Xerxes into Greece, the rapid conquest of Persia by Alexander, his untimely death, without posterity, the division of his monarchy into 4 kingdoms, one of which, Egypt, is mentioned by name, their various wars and intermarriages, the persecution of Antiochus, the profanation of the temple, and the invisible arms of the Romans are described with as much clearness in the prophecies of Daniel as in the histories of Fustin and Diodorus. From such a perfect resemblance, the artful infidel would infer that both alike were composed after the event. And that quote should end right there. See Gibbon's letter to Bishop Hurd in Hurd's Works, Volume 5, page 365. And you can find that. I found that on archive. It's not page 365, but you will find Gibbon's letter. It's just on another page in Volume 5. So we have from history, and I believe that that was written after Matthew Henry wrote his commentary on Daniel 11, which clearly outlines the sequence of events. And regardless of the ending of what Matthew Henry delineates in his commentary, the first 29 verses are clearly in the history of the Persian monarchy and Alexander and the falling of his empire to 4 generals, and you name it, the Seleucid Empire, Ptolemy Philopator, Ptolemy Philadelphus, you name it, it's in this. Go read this amazing piece of work Matthew Henry made. And this was in like mid 1600s. I forget when he wrote it, but this is in the 1600s. So it would be by far not unlikely that that is specifically what Gibbon is referencing here, because I have not seen another work, and there might be other ones, but he's very well known, so I would assume it's him. But yeah, I don't know where mead is mentioned in here. It's in the latter part of the book, but I don't want to have to go through and search for mead. Well, I think it's right here. Oh, here we go. Well, I think this is a different one. This is Mead's suggestion of the 1290 and 1335, which I agree with Nicholas Arthur, which you can find that. Mead, yeah, this is not going to touch on. And maybe I just thought of him, but I did look at his work and he does mention, I thought he did, but maybe he doesn't mention the 1150 days being that between the, I think it's this, that Mead wrote that the period of 1290 and 1335 would be dated from the profanation of the temple by Antiochus, and that they're close to be the mark of the unsealing of the prophecy. But like I said, Nicholas Arthur, I think, gives the best explanation of this in Volume 4 that he republished of Horae Apocolypticae. And so you can read that online for free, request it from him through email after subscribing, or read it yourself. So we continue. Setting the stage, the whole of the 8th chapter of Daniel is one of the most marvelous chapters of Bible prophecy. There is the most amazing coincidence between the prophecy and historical record that forces critics to conclude that either Daniel lived after these events described or that he was inspired by God. There is no middle ground. As we have shown in another portion of this book, there is indisputable evidence that the book of Daniel, this is by Fred Miller. I never introduced the author of this. This is Fred P. Miller. He was a fellow historicist. I found one of his works on Amazon. This work, Zechariah and Jewish Renewal, was on Amazon. But there's another book. It was like the span of the apocalypse or something, where you can find it. And so he's a fellow historicist. So it makes sense why he found the, controversial prophecy in history, because he was looking in history. He wasn't looking for near history, right? He was looking in ancient history when this prophecy was given. And God obviously gave him the wisdom and understanding. So as we have shown in another portion of this book, there is indisputable evidence that the book of Daniel existed before the time of the events that this study is concerned with. The Septuagint translation of the Old Testament, completed at the request of Ptolemy Philadelphus in the year 785 BC in Alexandria, antedates the historical period described in the above passage by 120 years. About the year 165 BC, Antiochus Epiphanes took away the Jewish daily sacrifice, and a little less than 3.5 years later, the worship and daily sacrifice were restored by the Maccabees. Daniel actually lived some 400 years before this event, which he so accurately described, and the Septuagint translation empirically establishes the existence of the prophecy before the events occurred. The historical material covered in Daniel 8. In Daniel 8, 20 and 21, the main characters in the vision are named as the Medo-Persian Empire and the Greek Empire. The former is pictured as a ram with 2 horns, and the latter as a he-goat with a large horn between his eyes. In the vision, Greece meets Medo-Persia at the river, where the latter is utterly destroyed, after which the Greek kingdom waxes great. The first kingdom or king or kingdom of the Greeks, under the symbol of the great horn in the midst of the he-goat's head, is broken in the height of his strength. 4 other smaller horns take his place. This is later explained in verse 22. And we'll read again. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Thus, 4 inferior kingdoms would result and become the continuation of the Greek Empire. The historical coincidence is so remarkable as to make the proposition worth repeating. Either Daniel lived after the events, or he was inspired of God. No man could have guessed this sequence before it happened, and no man, I should add, no man has since ever done this, right? That's the point. It's God's prophecy. Anyone knowing the history is struck immediately with the accuracy with which the vision describes the time, peoples, and events predicted. Even an infidel, Gibbon, understood how accurate it was. The chapter continues the historical unfolding and describes a sinister king, a little horn, coming up out of one of the four divisions of the Greek Empire. He turns against the people of God and their temple, desecrating the temple worship as described above. This king rises out of one of the four kingdoms left to the Greeks. This king rising out of one of the four kingdoms left to the Greeks is said not only to attack the people of God, but also to direct his attention against the Holy Land, and what appears in the prophecy to be the high priest pictured as the prince of the host, and perhaps against God himself under the figure of the prince of princes. In his heart, he exalted himself. The actual history is identical. The kingdom of Alexander the Great, so hastily put together and so firmly established after the decisive routs of Darius III at Issus and Gaugamela, at Arbela, followed by Alexander's subsequent capture of India, adding it as a province to an already subdued Asia, Europe, Egypt, Syria, Persia, and points in between, made him the master of the mightiest empire that had yet risen in history. He died shortly thereafter, and his four generals divided his kingdom. Antigonus took Macedonia, Cassander took Asia Minor, Seleucus Syria in the east, and Ptolemy Egypt. The latter two were the most powerful kingdoms, and their position made Israel a pawn between them, it being periodically under the control of one or the other until the rise of the Romans. And this is what history attests to. The kingdom of the Greeks as the world power lasted approximately 300 years. More than halfway through that period of time, one of the successors of Seleucus, Antiochus Epiphanes, rose and took control of the Seleucid portion of the Near East. He was a godless man who sought to empty temples of their wealth and then distribute it in a Robin Hood-like way. And this is written about in Flavius Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews. Another of his major aims was to spread Greek culture and wisdom. Thus, Israel was just another nation upon which to impose Greek ways, and his temple just one more to empty its wealth. However, in Israel he developed a particularly passionate hatred for the Jews and their worship. In the 142nd year of the kingdom of the Greeks, Seleucidae Antiochus corrupted Menelaus, a usurper who had murdered the previous high priest and had installed himself in that office. In time, Menelaus gave himself to converting Jews to Greek culture, building a gymnasium, and entering athletic events in the Greek fashion. Mind you, they did this naked. That's what the gymnasium was. I believe it's two words meaning naked exercise. He and other Jews developed a false method of appearing uncircumcised. So far did he go in getting some to abandon their God, culture, and religion. And this is written about in Maccabees and Flavius Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews. 2.5 years later, Antiochus did indeed stop the daily sacrifice and set up an idol in the temple and an altar upon which swine were sacrificed. The temple fell into disuse. Weeds and brush grew up in its courtyards. This was the root cause of the rebellion of the Maccabean family, who after 3 years of fighting defeated the Greek forces, cleansed the temple, and reinstituted a daily sacrifice. This is where we get Hanukkah from. This is what Hanukkah commemorates. Antiochus, upon hearing of this and other setbacks, took to this bed, and in a fever died shortly thereafter. Daniel's brief description of the reign of Antiochus Epiphanes in chapters 8 and 11 has caused some commentators who doubt the truth of the Bible to conclude that Daniel had to live after Antiochus. The Interpreter's Bible says, no one could write these visions without seeing the events themselves. So blind is unbelief. And I agree. The 2300-day problem. Though most interpreters see the fulfillment of these last events related to the sinister king in Antiochus Epiphanes and the accurately defined events of the prophecy, the 2300 days has defied accurate interpretation. And to say it 2300 days, not 2300 evening and morning. Most commentators notice a marvelously close coincidence of the approximate time involved, but the most eminent commentators state that there cannot be an accurate fixing of exactly 2300 evenings and mornings, the Hebrew Erev Boker. At this point, there needs to be a consideration of whether the prophecy refers to 2300 literal days or to 2300 daily sacrifices, one in the evening and one in the morning, as was the practice since Moses. The latter gives us 2 sacrifices per day. 2300 sacrifices would accomplish 1150 days. A period of either just over 6 years or a period of 3 years and 1½ months would be indicated. Both positions have their defenders. So, 2300 literal days. From the time of the corruption of Menelaus until the death of Antiochus in the 149th year of the Greeks was about 6 years and 3 months, or approximately 2300 literal days. Many take the position that this fulfills the prophecy. These note that the prophecy includes the attack on the land and the prince of the host or high priest. Keel, Pulpit Commentary, Jameson, Fawcett and Brown, Matthew Henry, and other commentators take this position. There certainly is a close coincidence in the time. There is no way to pinpoint the exact number of days because there is no exact date recorded, either for the defection of Menelaus or the death of Antiochus. So 1150 days is equal to 2300 daily sacrifices. After a close look at the text, it is obvious that the period being asked about dates from the taking away the daily sacrifice, after a closer look at the text, it is obvious that the period being asked about dates from the taking away the daily sacrifice until it is restored. So in Daniel 8:13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, or the numberer of the secrets, or the wonderful numberer, which I would say is Jesus Christ. How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? So he's saying the primary question is stricken too. How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice? And then it follows with other pieces of information. So the direct object is the daily sacrifice. And he reads it. And I want to add, we have the answer, we have these multiple objects of the question. How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? So those are 4 different things in one question. And I want to mention Nicklas Arthur's study on Matthew chapter 24 and his wonderful, the wisdom God has given him in understanding of this passage, one of the most misunderstood passages in the Bible. And read his study and you'll see that the crux of the matter is the misunderstanding of the question asked Jesus by his disciples. Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of that coming and of the end of the world? Because in the text, Jesus answers these two questions separately, and Nicklas Arthur does an amazing job of showing that. And so you should really read that study, because I see that here. We have multiple things being mentioned in the question, but then I believe it's Jesus that's speaking here, but the certain saint which spake said unto Daniel, unto 2000, he didn't answer anything. He said unto 2300 evening morning, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. That's the thing that he answered. He didn't talk about the host. He didn't talk about the transgression of desolation in his answer. What he mentioned out of the question was the sanctuary being cleansed, which is why I think is the most important part of understanding what's being talked about, with this prophecy. So the word days does not appear in the Hebrew. It is arev boker, evening, morning. And the words are singular. So it's evening, morning, not evenings, mornings, but 2300 evening, morning. Maybe God did this to even more hone in 2300 single things, single sacrifices, so we can clearly understand and not be deluded to say 2300 actual days, because if it would have said 2300 evenings and mornings, well, then somebody could say, well, it's plural, so we have to count it as one. I think God did that on purpose. Evening and morning, the words are singular. It should be read 2300 evening, morning, etc. It says the American Standard Version reads, and we'll read it for the study purpose, but anyways. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said unto the certain one who spoke, How long shall the vision concerning the continual burnt offering and the transgression that maketh desolate, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 evenings and mornings, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. The NIV has a similar reading. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to him, How long will it take for the vision to be fulfilled? The vision concerning the daily sacrifice, the rebellion that causes desolation, and the surrender of the sanctuary and of the host that will be trampled underfoot. He said to me, It will take 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated. But we know it was singular in the Hebrew, and that's what we have in the Authorized Version. It says evening, morning, no S. It is more natural to begin the time period with the abandonment of the daily sacrifice according to the question and answer in this text. The number ought to be applied to the number of sacrifices, not to the number of days. The days interpretation is based on faulty translation. Thus, the taking away of the daily sacrifice until the restoration of the sacrifices to be 2,300 evening and morning. Since the sacrifice was offered, one in the evening and one in the morning, it is more natural to view the prophecy as comprising 1,150 days, which would contain 2,300 sacrifices. The dates are certain for the cessation and restoration of the daily sacrifice. So the dates are certain for the, few dates are better established in antiquity than the dates of the interruption of the sacrifice and its restoration. 1 Maccabees 54 states, Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side. The termination is established in the same book, 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 52 and 53. I'm just going to go to chapter 4. So we have, now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. And so the interval should number 1,150 days, or 2,300 daily sacrifices. The problem is that there are 3 years and 10 days between the two events, according to the account in 1 Maccabees. 3 years and 10 days. 3 years and 10 days is 3 times 365 plus 10, which is 1,105. That is 45 days short of the required number. Not close enough. An obvious but overlooked consideration. This prophecy has been unsuccessfully calculated due to the commentator's dependence on the Julian calendar of 365 days. The Julian calendar using a 365-day year was not in official use until 45 BC. The calendar in use when the prophecy was fulfilled was different from that in use today. This prophecy was fulfilled about 165 years before Christ. The dates given in Maccabees, which measures the time of the cessation of the daily sacrifice, are based on a Greek calendar, which did not compute the year with 365 days. This clear statement of fact is often overlooked as the reason for the lack of success in interpreting this prophecy. The calendar of the ancients. Previous to 45 BC, the year was most often computed using a lunar calendar, based on phases of the moon, hence month or month. There were a variety of ways to compute the year and make the season come out right. The lunar calendar of the earliest Greeks had 354 days. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, they had a year of 6 months containing 29 days and 6 months of 30 days. Every other year, an intercalary month, 30 days was added between the first and second months. The intercalary month was omitted in the 8th year of the cycle to make the seasons come back to the right dates. The Hebrew calendar had a 360-day year, and also the intercalary month was used, though the length of it was not uniform. The addition of it was decided by the high priest. And you can read about that in the law. Computing the 2300 evening and morning from ancient calendars. Using the most ancient Greek lunar calendar of 354 days, and considering that it is quite possible for the first and last year in any 3-year cycle to have intercalary months, we then would come up with the following computation. 3 years and 10 days would be 3 times 54 plus 2 times 30 for each intercalary month plus 10 days. That is equal to 1132 days. It is 18 days short of the required amount that would complete 2300 daily sacrifices, or 1150 days. We are getting closer, but not close enough yet. Herodotus. Herodotus is called the father of history, among other things. He wrote about the year 445 BC in a passage where he discusses Solon, who is speaking to Croesus, a Greek king in Asia Minor, about the relativity of happiness in life. Solon cites the usual length of a man's life. He says, take 70 years as the span of a man's life. Those 70 years contain 25,200 days, without counting intercalary months. Add a month every other year to make the seasons come round with proper regularity, and you will have 35 additional months, which will make 1,050 days. Thus, the total days of your 70 years is 26,250, and not a single one of them is like the next in what it brings. From this passage, we see that the length of the Greek year is 25,250 divided by 70, or 360 days. This would have been the year to Solon, Croesus, Herodotus, and most likely to Antiochus Epiphanes and the Maccabees. With further observation, we see that 1,050 days divided by 35 gives 30 days at the length of the intercalary month. Computing with the Greek calendar in use at the time of the Maccabees. Using the Greek calendar according to Herodotus, and assuming that the years 146 and 148 were intercalary years, which is not improbable, we come up with the following calculation. The 15th of Casleu, year 145, to the 25th day of Casleu, the year 148. The dates given in Maccabees from the desecration to the cleansing is 3 years and 10 days. Thus, the math sentence following the Greek calendar, which was in use at the time the prophecy was fulfilled, would be 3 years of 360 days plus 2 months of 30 days plus 10 days. And we have the diagram, and it equals 1150 days. This is exactly the period which would accomplish exactly 2,300 sacrifices, one in the evening and one in the morning. Using the Greek calendar is obviously the correct way to compute the number of days between the dates in Maccabees. Using that method arrives at the correct computation. Do not lose sight of the fact that Daniel wrote this prophecy years before it was fulfilled. The angel who spoke knew the future. The divine nature of the book of Daniel is validated by this prophecy. God's messenger told Daniel there would be a period when a king who would rise up out of one of the 4 divisions of the coming Greek Empire, who would attack the Holy Land and stop the daily sacrifice 2,300 times. The future came round centuries later and validated the prophecy. Certainly the Bible is a living miracle. And I agree. And I ask you, have you ever heard of an explanation of that for prophecy? Because I had not before I read that article, and it is spot on. That's the truth of it right there. And so y'all go check out NIcklas Arthur at Prophecy Reformation Now. He's a couple other ones, and consider supporting him there. This is all he does. All he does is Protestant work, and he protests the papacy as the beast and the Roman bishop as the man of sin, as is prophesied in the Bible. So go help him. He does awesome work. He deserves all the support. He's written amazing books. He's republished the greatest work on prophecy that we have available. And we love him. And thank you for watching. Have you ever heard, comment on my video, have you ever heard of this explanation? I think it's the correct explanation. This is the answer. It's not 2,300 years as we have in other points of prophecy. The language is different. It's not time times and a half, right? It's just evening and morning. We have to figure out why God used that language. And I think this completely explains it. And what an amount of understanding God gave this man in his study to find the truth. Thank you. God bless you.